They were out early one morning, panning in the stream for gold, surrounded by the rising mountains. Old prospector with a tale for two, he brushed around in the pan, pointing out what lay within was ordinary sand. He began with his story about 20 years before, and a younger man who sought his fortune. With a tear or two he told of searching for his treasure, but making known the gold he sought was ordinary pleasure. There were years of doing without, and there were years of plenty. I started thinking that life was never steady, excepting when the bills came in and I had no money to pay. Whiskey had never tasted better ordinarily. Concluded his story as it filled the air with a laugh, saying how he found the Lord and Savior, and how he found the river of life by which his day unfolds, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Through His word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Believe upon His promises.
Hello, I'm Mark Wallace. This is True North Studio, and today the title is Outgrow Your Space. Now, growth is a funny thing. It changes you. As your feet got bigger, Mom bought you new shoes. As you got better at your job, you moved up to a better position or moved on to a better career. As you got smarter, faster, stronger than everyone else on your team, you outgrew that team. Every time we outgrow our current space, a new opportunity appears. Advancement is the side effect of growth. That's how God set things up. We had a kid in our suburban Texas neighborhood named Neil. He was super nice, average size, good-looking boy with thick, blonde, wavy hair that seemed to fall over one of his eyes, making him a man of mystery. And the girls went crazy over him. One summer I didn't see Neil much. He didn't come out to play with the rest of the kids. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. Maybe he got a job. Maybe he did something stupid and got grounded for the summer. Well, when fall rolled around and we all went back to school, I finally saw Neil. And he was no longer cute little blonde kid, that all the girls loved. He had grown almost 10 inches that summer. Plus he put on maybe 40 pounds. He was huge. And he had changed from cute little Neil into the Hulk. And when I saw him, I had to blink twice. It was like, I thought I was seeing things. And I walked around him like a scientist studying a newly received museum specimen. Well, Neil's growth spurt changed everything about him. His new size attracted a totally different set of girls. He only hung out with the biggest of big kids now. He even changed sports. I didn't see Neil much after that. He outgrew us. Neil's growth spurt was not of his choosing. The type of growth I'll be talking about today is not about the natural growth of a too large child. Nope, I'll be talking about personal growth, those daily decisions that change everything. There's great reward once we decide to outgrow our space. Now, one of Job's friends, while fumbling around trying to help him make sense of his great loss, got something right when he said, "And though your beginning was small, your latter days will be very great." Job 8:7. We don't just go through life, we grow through life. The lesson here is that once you outgrow your space at work, in your art, with your music, your sport, your ministry, new doors will immediately begin to open for you. Romans 12:2 says, "Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings out the best of you, develops well-formed maturity in you." The King James calls this well-formed maturity the renewed mind. That well-formed maturity, that renewed mind, is achieved by fixing our attention on higher level thoughts in our hearts and minds. So when you're finally ready to advance, finally ready to make more money, finally ready to produce better music, finally ready to write that book, finally ready to lose that weight, finally ready to put your ding in this crazy old world, then you're ready to grow. But if we keep doing the same things in the same old ways, but expect some giant growth spurt, we may be a little insane. Life doesn't work that way. I was recently reminded of a great quote from psychologist Dr. Carl Jung when he said, "We don't solve our problems, we outgrow them." I like to say we have to change something to change something. Change takes forward and upward movement. Now here's a cool verse that really made me think. James 4:8 from the AMPC. Come close to God and he will come close to you. That verse seems to indicate that we play a part in our own success. James, the brother of Jesus, is telling us that as we move systematically toward what we want, then God will steadily move it closer to us. When you believe, you receive. God makes sure it happens. So what do you want? What do you need? What are you willing to put energy into so you can move forward, advance, get it right, grow closer to what you want? The basketball great Larry Bird said, "I've got a theory that if you give 100% all the time, somehow things will work out in the end." End of quote. So today let's look at a few pointers on how to outgrow our space so we can grow into a life that most people only read about. The 1% rule, incremental growth. Have you ever heard of the 1% rule? It's where you make small changes and trade for massive long-term results. It's not about quick, instantaneous growth. 1 Timothy 4:15, be diligent in these matters. Give yourself wholly to them so that everyone may see your progress. The 1% rule is the progress that appears from slow, methodical growth. We've all seen enough people gain all the weight back and more after a crash diet. You all know about getting hurt at the gym when you push it too hard, too fast. Like me, maybe you've even fallen for those get-rich-quick schemes that irritate your friends and leave you with less than you started. The 1% rule is those tiny little habits that move us forward by maybe 1% each day. For big-time, long-lasting results, try to improve yourself a little bit every day. Add a little something into your daily routine. Or if you're trying to break a bad habit, take a little something out. Just pick any tiny habit and stick with it. Maybe make a small habit to stack your dirty dish in the dishwasher. Or make it a habit to just wash that dish right now. Straighten one thing in the garage each time you go in there. Pick up one piece of trash on the trail. You know, while we were in LA last week, I watched my son take a rag and wipe down his dashboard almost every time he got into his SUV because it's such a dry and dusty place. I don't think he even realized he was doing it anymore. Maybe take out the trash without being asked. How about plucking the yellow leaves from your plants every time you notice? Maybe you don't open the refrigerator every time you walk past. Make a bunch of good little habits and watch what happens to your life. It sounds a bit OCD, but it's not. These are not quirky obsessions. These are small daily decisions. These become good habits that force growth or help you grow less if you're trying to lose weight. Massive benefits accumulate over time. Mark Twain once said, quote, "Giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I know because I've done it thousands of times." End of quote. If you fall back into your old bad habits, just keep quitting. Change is never easy. Our minds and bodies, our friends and families usually like us the way we were. They like homeostasis. They like the old us. So keep pushing. And when you fail, pick yourself back up and keep trying. Philippians 3:13. Forget what is behind and straining towards what is ahead. I press toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Those tiny changes will compound, and over time they will generate massive growth for you. I have a client who started investing maybe 10 years ago. He had $100 automatically taken out of his checking every month. He didn't even notice the money leaving his account. He called me the other day, confused as hell, asking me why he had so much money in the account that he didn't even remember opening. Well, I reminded him that he had been systematically investing for years. That's the 1% rule. Add into your daily routine behaviors that will benefit you a little bit at a time. If you're a writer, then set a time and write every day. If you're a musician, then practice every day. If you're married, maybe try to listen a little better. Try to improve your relationship every day. If you're wanting to improve your work skills or your income, then do a little something every day that moves you closer to your goal. Remember James 4:8? Build those good habits a little at a time. If you're a runner, then lace up those shoes on a schedule and hit the trails or treadmill. If you do your yoga every week. If you're a mom, well, you're already doing a lot. You deserve a nap. So grow into your new practice. I slowly left a ministry that I dearly loved because it had grown one way as Josephine and I grew another way. We had learned many good things, but we no longer fit in their space. After 27 moves spanning 30 years coupled with multiple career changes, Josephine and I lived Spartan. We had trained ourselves to live on very little. Now this practice can be both good and bad. Good if you're starting over all the time, but bad if you ever want to advance financially. I had inadvertently set a mental ceiling on wealth and income. Now sure, we taught abundance and maybe in some way we lived it, but it wasn't at the level I wanted any longer. I knew I had to change something, but how? Well, my friend Frida observed my struggle and she gave me a book about incremental changes. And I devoured it and looked for more books like it. Unintentionally, I started reading a book a week. Plus, I slowly fell into a daily exercise habit. I started to go to bed at the same time, which caused me to get up at the same time every day. And because I was up early, I began to work on my teachings every single day before anyone else in the house was up. Then I started running on a schedule, slowly expanding my distance, experimenting with different shoes and gear. And then I started a small business and asked friends for side work to tide me over. I also studied for certifications and licenses for a career I could do as I got older, knowing I would need to work longer than most people. Shifting from my nomadic minister mindset to that of a prosperous working Joe, and to not lose my heart and passion for God took focus and time. It didn't happen fast, and it wasn't easy. But my finances slowly began to grow. I became physically, mentally, and spiritually stronger, and my teachings have hopefully improved a bit too. The 1% rule began to compound for me. The effect of those small, good daily habits became noticeable. Thanks to my friend and her book, I outgrew my space. Quote, permit yourself to change your mind when something is no longer working for you. Nedra Glover Tawwab. Isn't that how God designed this whole universe? If you want something, grow towards it. Put in the time, put in the work, and be patient. Hebrews 5:11. I have a lot more to say about this, but it's hard to get it across to you since you've picked up this bad habit of not listening. By this time, you ought to be teachers yourselves, yet here I find you. Need somebody to sit down with you and go over the basics on God again, starting from square one, baby's milk, when you should have been on solid food long ago. Milk is for beginners, inexperienced in God's ways. Solid food is for the mature, who have some practice in telling right from wrong. Well, that verse reminded me of a famous quote by Albert Einstein. Quote, we can't solve our problems from the level of thinking which created them. End of quote. Move towards that thing you want, and that thing is going to move closer to you. It's a spiritual principle. That's the design of creation. It's impossible to fail if we just keep failing in the right direction. Keep growing a little bit at a time, and you will outgrow your current space. That's the 1% rule. find your perfect environment. Sometimes when we're finally ready to grow even faster, we need to find our perfect environment. Begin in the right place. Being in the right place at the right time can be very helpful in our quest to outgrow our space. During a visit to the Sequoia National Park in California, I saw the biggest tree on earth, a tree named the General Sherman. Well, I had studied about it when I was a young forestry student in college, so this was bucket list. This woody giant is not the tallest, but he's by far the biggest living tree on the planet. Plus, it's over 2,200 years old, and it's still growing maybe an inch wider every year. It was a young seedling when Jesus was still in diapers, playing with wood shavings from his dad's shop. The General Sherman tree is so wide it takes maybe 19 people holding hands to make a complete circle around its base. It's taller than an 11-story building. These massive sequoias naturally grow into giants in just one place on Earth, only on the western slope of the Sierra Nevada mountains, only between 5,000 and 7,000 feet in elevation, and requiring a very specific heat and humidity index. Plus, the giant sequoias are born of fire. Unlike most trees, they need wildfire to thrive. Without fire, they cannot live or reproduce. Giant sequoias typically require fire for their cones to open and release their seeds. Also, their thick cork-like bark is fire resistant. Not only that, but those wildfires that rip through the forest kill off thousands of other species of trees that compete with the sequoias for water, nutrients, and sunlight. Plus, the newly burnt undergrowth makes for a fertile seedbed, perfect for a tiny sequoia seedling. And the cycle continues. There's only one perfect environment on Earth for the giant sequoias, and that's where the air is thin, the summers get hot, where the snow piles deep, and only on the western slope of the Sierra Nevadas. What's your perfect environment for growth? For us, it may not be a place. It may be a mindset, a headspace, or a place where your personal set of tools can be easily noticed. Your perfect spot is usually where you shine, where the best of you is manifest and wanted by others. Quote, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity." Amelia Earhart. I believe that as we push like hell to find and build our perfect environment, whatever that means, we will grow to our perfect height in business, in sports, in music, as a parent, a student, or as a child of the Creator. Like the giant sequoia, we too will more than fill our space as we continue to grow into our perfect environment, whatever that looks like. But when we get distracted from our gift, we will begin to live other people's dreams. When that happens, we're not only unfulfilled, but we mess with the flow of creation. Don't mess with the flow of creation. Quote, don't give up trying to do what you really want to do. Where there is love and inspiration, I don't think you can go wrong. Ella Fitzgerald. Proverbs 13:20. One who walks with the wise becomes wise, but whoever keeps company with fools only hurts himself. Wisdom is simply utilizing your gift at a high level. Let's give the best of ourselves. Let's uncover our talent, and let's grow into our gifts. 1 Peter 2:11. Friends, this world is not your home, so don't make yourselves cozy in it. Don't indulge your ego at the expense of your soul. Live an exemplary life among the natives so that your actions will refute their prejudices, and then they'll be won over to God's side and be there to join in the celebration when He arrives. People need what you have to offer. People need what you have to offer. Let's guide them to God by using our particular gifts. Quote, be not afraid of growing slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. Chinese proverb. My wife has the uncanny ability to wade into pretty much any conversation in any group, anywhere, and people will give her the floor and laugh at her many stories. Now, we were having one of our yearly neighborhood blowout parties at our house, and the food was delicious, the conversation too loud, and the drinks disappeared just a little bit too quickly. As the party reached a fevered pitch, I walked outside to check on things. And around the glass-top patio table, the one with the big umbrella, there was a group of people listening and laughing in rapt attention as Josephine told her stories. Now, not reading the room, I pulled up a chair and thought I would interject one of my own funny stories when Josie finally took a breath. Well, just as I shoved my way into the conversation, one of our well-watered neighbors, a huge muscular man, shushed me, shh, and said, "Mark, I like your stories, but I think Josephine is the most interesting person on earth." So with an ever so slightly bruised ego, I just smiled. Josephine has mastered her craft. No matter where she goes, Josephine can form the perfect environment through story. Josephine is a unicorn when it comes to fast friendships. Her stories touch people's souls in seconds. She's honed her gift since childhood and has made hundreds of friends. And I've seen her connect instantly with doctors, lawyers, moms, kids, retail employees, megachurch preachers, and mafia dons. She uses her gift in ways I don't even come close to. With her ability to read people quickly and tell the perfect story for them, she brings with her the perfect environment, no matter where she goes, and she does it with ease. Quote, "It is never too late to be who you might have been." George Eliot. 1 Corinthians 13:11. "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish things behind me." 12. "Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Fully become the person you were meant to be. Quote, "Life's challenges are not supposed to paralyze you. They're supposed to help you discover who you are." Bernice Johnson Reagan. In our future, we will clearly see the totality of who we were meant to be. But until that time, we keep plugging away and we keep growing. It's never easy. Romans 5:3. "And not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. And character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, but because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. God's love will be magnified during the darkest of times." Quote, "If there's no struggle, there is no progress." Frederick Douglass. Even with the Spirit of God, growth can be painful at times. But anything we face can yield incredible learning, build strong character, and teach us to persevere. We can handle far more than we think we can. David Goggins, ultra athlete and former Navy SEAL, said, "Don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done." Then he adds, "When you think you're done, you're only 40% into what your body's capable of doing." End of quote. Let's push hard to find a way to outgrow our space. Philippians 3:14. "I press on toward the goal to win the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus." Paul is speaking here of the growth mindset. Growth requires constant practice, a consistent pushing of oneself, and some place to go. Oh, by the way, it's always up hills both ways. As long as we live on this side of heaven, we'll have to push ourselves. Now, one day we will arrive, but as long as we're on this earth, there will always be room for growth. Always. Actually, I think there will be opportunities for growth throughout eternity. A fulfilled life is never stagnant. Isn't the resurrected Christ right now preparing a place for us? John 14:2. Building indicates growth, doesn't it? If Adam and Eve had to work the garden in the first paradise, we too will have something to work on in the second paradise. That's growth. Growing our paradise in this free will environment is a process. Once those giant sequoias found themselves planted in their ideal environment and started growing, they keep growing for a long, long time. Once you find a place, a profession, a tribe, a job, a hobby, a calling that you fit into, and you're seeing personal growth, that's probably a good place for you. For now, find your perfect environment. Do I stay or do I grow? This next point is easy to say, hard to do. How do we know when it's time to go? Time to make the switch. Time to change careers. Time to leave a job, a church, a team, or an old group of friends. Healthy relationships should make you feel uplifted and energized. You should never feel emotionally exhausted. But if you don't feel loved, if you feel like you're carrying the relationship, if conflicts stay unresolved, if the rules of the game always seem to fall in the other person's or group's favor, if there's constant abuse of any kind, or if you begin to dislike yourself, it may be time to go. As humans, we are wired to keep the tribe together. We need each other. It's lonely out there. It's scary out there. But sometimes we have to make the hard choice. Do I stay or do I go? I've had to leave people, places, and groups that I dearly love because I no longer fit. When I was 16, I foolishly left a perfectly good home in search of adventure. There was no reason for me to leave. In my travels, I made some unsavory friends. But in some weird way and by the grace of God, they helped me stay alive and have fun doing it. That next summer I changed. I became interested in, let's call it addicted to God and truth, light and love. I changed from the inside out. I was no longer the same Mark. I thought differently, talked differently about different things. I even listened to different music. As I changed, I no longer fit with those old friends. I outgrew them. So I cut my long strawberry blonde hair. I moved back in with family. I registered for my final year of high school, and I never looked back. I searched far and wide for a group of Christians who lived like Acts and who weren't religious about it. Within a year or so, I found a wonderful Christian ministry to grow with. They gave me endless opportunities for adventure. I grew into them, and they grew into me. We were symbiotic. We were one. But like every living organism, they too were growing and changing and adapting. And over a 30-year span, they had grown one way, and my wife and I had grown another. When the leadership saw us slowly peeling away like a crazy jilted lover, they came at us with a suffocating vengeance, demanding we conform to their latest version of churchianity. Well, we were done. It was time to leave. It was time to leave that tribe and build another. We felt like that enlightened cave couple who were kicked out of the cave because they discovered fire. So what do we do with ourselves after a major life growth spurt, leading to a breakup from something or someone? It can be scary and lonely. The Apostle Paul made mention of this change, Romans 12:2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. This transformation, this upward renewing happens over time and is usually accompanied with some sort of struggle. We no longer fit in the world we once built. Have you ever had to painfully watch and wait for someone to change their horrible life situation for the better? You can easily see how great their life could be if they would just... You get the point. Paul talks about this awaiting growth in others, Galatians 4:19. Do you know how I feel right now? And will feel until Christ's life becomes visible in your lives? Like a mother in pain, in the pain of childbirth. Paul was talking about the birth pains of waiting on someone else to grow more than they themselves want to grow. Christ never forces himself on us. We're the ones who must decide to be Christ-like. When I was a young forestry student in Nacogdoches, Texas, the land of tall women and virgin timber, we were required to spend many hours in the East Texas woods identifying trees. I loved every second of it. Even our final exam was done mostly outside. We had to identify over 100 trees by looking at just a random leaf, a twig, fruit, or just the bark. One blazingly hot East Texas day, I came across a large tree in full leaf that I didn't recognize. And I thought I knew them all. The bark and twigs told me it was a red oak, Quercus rubra, but the leaves weren't oak-like at all. The three-part leaflet told a completely different story. I stared at it for a few minutes, trying to make sense. I looked on the ground for acorns or some indicator, but found none. It was weird to me. Every branch was covered with green and red leaflets. It was majestic, yet something was wrong. Something didn't fit. I walked around the tree looking for anything that could help me identify it, and then I saw it. On the far side of the huge tree was a massive, hairy vine as thick as my arm, growing straight up the backside of that huge tree. Its tentacles spread out into every branch and twig of that once mighty oak. The vine had been growing there so long, it had literally grown into the tree, became the tree, choked the life out of it, and overtook every branch. It was poison ivy. That poison ivy vine outgrew its space at the base of the oak and slowly overtook the oak. Now, I hate poison ivy. I hate it. But did you know that poison ivy is part of the cashew family? And its fruit feeds many woodland creatures and migratory birds? Even poison ivy has its place in this whole orchestra we call life. God takes care of more than just us. For us, it's usually good to adhere to the old Boy Scout adage, leaflets 3, let it be. It's poison ivy or poison oak. Berries white, poisonous sight. Now, my side point here is sometimes you no longer fit in a group, a job, or a relationship. Sometimes your gift, your fruit is no longer needed there, no longer wanted. You've done all you can do, and it's time to move on and let someone or something else enjoy that sunlight or those berries. That's okay. You did your part. Be proud. Quote, we are products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it. Rick Warren. When contemplating change, think, do I stay or do I grow? Practical tips for personal growth. Now I want to show you a few tips that have helped me grow in the direction I wanted to grow. All of them are pretty easy to do. I learned a long time ago that you have to change something to change something. Romans 12:2 from the TLB. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but be new and different person with a fresh newness in all you do and think. Here are a few tips I use for personal growth. Read more or listen to more audible books. See, reading changes you. I'm doing about 50 books a year now. Exercise a few times a week. Keep your body moving. Eat smarter. Drink more water and get more sleep. Now, we all hear this all the time. Keep your self-talk positive. Be good to yourself. Smartly invest your money and gradually increase the amount year after year. Quote, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. Warren Buffett. Adopt the 2-minute rule, which says if you can do something in less than 2 minutes or less, do it right then. Take out the trash, straighten up your desk, do the dishes, give that hug, write that note, text, or post, and then embrace the suck. Acknowledge the hardship, resist the urge to complain, and keep moving. When I was still in my 20s, Josephine and I somehow washed up in Grand Island, Nebraska. It was a 1-year unpaid ministry assignment meant to be a challenge, a proving ground for self-development. The town had been devastated by 7 tornadoes that each put that city in their bullseye. I landed a job with a construction company rebuilding a meatpacking plant. On my first day at that job, an overlarge boss wearing a smudged white hard hat tilted down to his eyebrows told me to follow him. He waddled down to the pond at the edge of the property, put his puffy hands on his hips, and ordered me to paddle an ugly gray rowboat out onto the pond. He told me to go out there and drag a thick black tarp back to the shore. Well, the tarp that once covered the small pond had ripped in a recent storm. And normally it would puff up like a giant balloon, filling with the methane gas that they use to run the meatpacking plant. I had no idea that the methane came from a slurry of cow poop and water washed into the pond when they cleaned the feedlot each night. So I paddled out to the gargantuan tarp, tied a corner of it to the little boat, and began to row back to the shore with all my might. And it was heavy, and the pond was stinky, but I just kept rowing. And when I finally paddled back to the White Hat, the big guy asked me if I knew what I just did. And he laughed and said, "Boy, you can now tell people you rowed a boat on a shit pond." Now, excuse the language, but that's exactly what he said. It didn't take a genius to know that I had just embraced the suck. Or as William Shakespeare once wrote, "Let thee embrace me, sour adversity, for wise men say it is the wisest course." That was Shakespeare's way of telling people to embrace the suck. Buddhists, endurance athletes, struggling musicians, and all moms know what embracing the suck means. Quote, "The will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach your full potential, these are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence." Confucius. Now here are a few verses I use for spiritual growth. You'll have your favorites too. These are mine. Be extremely persistent. Luke 11:8. "I say unto you, though he will not rise and give him because he is a friend, yet because of his importunity," or extreme persistence, "he will rise and give him as many as he needeth. And I say unto you, ask and it shall be given unto you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you." Now I jokingly tell myself, keep pushing until they call security. And give like crazy is another one. Luke 6:38 from the CEB. "Given it will be given unto you, a good portion packed down, firmly shaken and overflowing will fall into your lap. The portion you give will determine the portion you receive in return." Put in the hard work. Ecclesiastes 9:10. "Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest." Life has a time limit. It's a good idea to get started on your dream today. Remember the 2-minute rule. Expect God to supply, but do your part. Ephesians 3:20, "Now unto him that's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us." Do the right thing and you'll get the good stuff. Psalm 84:11, "Do no good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly." And then put the word of God into your head. 2 Timothy 2:15, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." Put on some truth every day through personal study, or maybe read the words from that brilliant writer you follow on social media. I can do, Philippians 4:13, "I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me." That is plenty of verses for now. We all have our favorites. Find one that matches your current situation and then think it, say it, and do it. Quote, "If you don't make the time to work on creating the life you want, you're eventually going to be forced to spend a lot of time dealing with the life you don't want." Kevin Nago. If we want to prosper in any aspect of our life, we must outgrow our space. Even the universe is still expanding. Grow toward a thing, and that thing is going to grow toward you. That is the gist of what James, the brother of Jesus, said. Quote, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. Mark Twain. Like my friend Neil, sometimes growth is thrust upon you, but usually life lets us know when it's time to grow or go. When we finally decide we've had enough of our current situation, we put our heads down and relentlessly move toward our change. hone your gift. Josephine has refined her ability to connect with people through storytelling and has blessed thousands. Whatever you're good at, keep getting better at it. To grow like a giant sequoia, you need to find your perfect environment. It may be a place, but it'll probably be a talent, a skill, or a mindset that opens the door to healthy relationships. Start every adventure with a few small steps. Remember the 1% and the 2-minute rule. Know that you will outgrow some people, places, and jobs. You will experience growing pains. Embrace the suck. You will have problems along the way. So as the bard once said, embrace me, sour adversity. Most especially hang on to those verses that help you grow through your current struggle. You can do far more than you think you can do. So keep moving, keep motating, keep growing. And when you grow through your comfort zone, something better will always open up to you. That is how we outgrow our space. God bless you all.